Hi, my name is Jennifer Brown. I'm a reference and instruction librarian at Georgia State University Library. I proudly work on the Decatur campus. Woohoo! And I'm here to share just a short informal presentation entitled Yoga, Silent DJs, and Dogs. Oh my! The presentation will cover just things I've learned from the years that I've worked in libraries, things that I've noticed and observed as an early career academic librarian, because I've only been an academic librarian for about, I guess, a year and a half at this point. I want to share some of the outreach successes that we've had at the Decatur campus, some common pitfalls that I've seen academic librarians fall into. I want to share just some tips that I've learned over the years, some things that I've learned in the past year and a half, and some basic how-tos. So about me, that's a picture of me in the Decatur Library for one of our events, Blind Date with a Book. I've worked in public libraries for, I guess, about 5 years. I worked in public libraries. I worked in youth services. So that included story times for preschoolers, toddlers, family story times, Spanish story times. I don't even speak Spanish. Summer reading clubs, tons of events, tons of outreach. And I would say that that's one of the reasons why I like outreach, why I feel very comfortable with it, while it is part of my wheelhouse, because I have those experiences working in public libraries, doing all of these events, knowing how many people are going to come, having a good idea of how much I need to advertise, how much something's going to cost. So, it's important to have experience, or it's important to recognize that experience outside of academia is really valuable. In terms of academia, I also have experience as an outreach coordinator for the Atlanta campus of Georgia State University's Special Collections and Archives. And in that role, I handled social media, I did events, I did community organization collaboration. What else? Well, you get the idea. Okay, so first I'm going to start with some common pitfalls that I've seen as an early career academic librarian with a background in public libraries. So one thing I've noticed is academic librarians, not all of you, just some I've noticed have a lot of anxiety about outreach. Just feeling like it's not in their wheelhouse, it's not something that they're comfortable with, it's not something that they want to do. So, especially because, in general, a lot of librarians are introverts, especially those that work in academia. And so I think the idea of putting themselves out there, being in charge of basically what's a party, at this big event, just gives them a lot of anxiety. So there's anxiety over attendance, there's anxiety over the planning of it. But I would say, when I say momentum is the key, is you just kind of got to start doing it. You kind of you have to do one and just keep doing it until you feel more comfortable with it. Another thing that I've noticed, a common pitfall, is I think there's an uncomfortableness about money in terms of asking for more money. It's like, well, my budget is this much, so I just want to spend this much. I don't want to ask for more. No, you need to get more money. So the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I'm saying you need to bug your boss. You need to bug administration. You need to bug leadership. I want money. I want money. I want funding, until you are just the most annoying little gnat and they finally give you some money. They give you some supplies. Sometimes you just have to ask. I've noticed that some librarians feel really uncomfortable asking for something. Just girl, ask, okay? Another thing that I've noticed is just not reaching out to campus departments or any sort of community partnerships. So one of the most successful things that we did at the Decatur campus is our partnership with the Student Life Department. So once we started working with the student life of Decatur campus and started doing events with them, they paid for pretty much everything. So we did a silent DJ event. They paid like $800 for that silent DJ and the rentals of all of the headphones. When we did Pups and Pops, which is we brought in the free therapy dogs, they paid for King of Pops popsicles. That was $500. For Cookies and Canvas, which was like a painting and all day cookie event, they paid for all of the cookies. They paid for most of the paint. They paid for most of the canvases. You get the idea. Student life, maybe there's a student life on your campus. Maybe there's a mental health institute on your campus. You know, just think about all these random places that you could start working with because they have the funds that maybe you don't. You know, we don't have any set outreach fund. You know, we just kind of ask and we'll just see like what we get. There's not a lot of money for outreach. And these places have the funds. You obviously can apply for grants if you want. You can get scrappy, which is what I've learned in public libraries is what can you do with nothing? What do you have in the back room? Do you have paper? Do you have pencils? Can you do this? Can you do that? You just got to get real creative and just like do a lot with very little. Another thing you could do to help put money into the events, which I would not recommend, but I've definitely done a million times. I've done it at the Decatur campus. I call it the vocational awe tax, where because we feel like we're doing this job that's so important and we want it to go well, we are willing to pay for the things at the event. So, for example, the Date with a Book event that we did, where for 2 weeks during Valentine's Day, you pick a book. It's a very popular thing. Many public libraries do it. We in no way reinventing the wheel. You pick a book, but not only did you get to open it and see what you bought, your blind date, like what you're about to check out, we also gave you chocolate and flowers. And that was a big thing because a lot of people wanted the flower. They just thought it was so cool. It's just a flower, but the students really wanted one. It wasn't even about the candy. That was a huge incentive. That event did really well for us. I think in only 2 weeks, we checked out, I want to say like 90 books, which our average, I think, is like 3 books a week. So we increased the average by a bazillion, but we weren't able to get a lot of money. I don't know if we got any money for the flowers. So me and my boss and another employee, we ended up funding all of those flowers and having to constantly go to Publix and getting some of it reimbursed, but some of it not, because, you know, it's like a huge hassle to get things reimbursed. So you can also fund it yourself. But I would suggest 100% trying to hook up with one of the people on your campus, like Student Life. So another common pitfall is not assessing your success. Like, I've heard before, like, well, if only a couple people come, then it was worth it. No, it's not worth it. It's not worth it if only a couple people come. How much time are you putting into it? I remember I read this story where this academic library for an event, like, blew up like 500 balloons in the auditorium. They were like having a balloon party or something like that. And only a couple people came, and they ended up putting hours into it, and they learned from it, right? But just think about how many hours am I putting into this versus how many people are coming. And I'm not saying the first time or second time you do it, there needs to be tons of people, because sometimes you need that momentum. Students need to start figuring out that your library is having outreach. You know, it needs to your brand needs to grow, word needs to get out. But if you're noticing that students really are not coming to your events and you're putting work into it, then don't do it. Move on and do something else. And just don't take it personally, though. You know, don't get all hurt, because I notice there's not a lot of assessment sometimes in academia, because you don't want to feel like if you didn't do well, it's like a sore spot and you don't want to call attention to it. or maybe you think it's a reflection on how well you did your job, but it's really not. Outreach, it's these events, you just got to do them, throw something at the wall, see what sticks. If it doesn't, move on. It has nothing to do with you. So, another common pitfall is librarians versus fun. The struggle is real. And obviously, I'm totally joking, but I'm kind of not. A lot of librarians in academia do not like fun, or at least the kind of fun students want to have. They don't like noise, they don't like chaos. So I will say, you need to embrace the chaos, okay? Embrace the noise. The noisier, the better. The noisier, it's like the louder it gets, the more you're succeeding, is how I feel about it. You want to put your student interest first. It's not about what you think is fun. It's about what they think is fun. So I've noticed there's some events which I think are really cool. I'm not saying they're bad. I really do like them. I'm just saying you don't need only these type of events, but maybe there'll be some sort of Wikipedia edit-a-thon. And those events are really cool. But think about the specific audience of students that would be interested in a Wikipedia edit-a-thon, would even know what in the world that was. I didn't even know what that was until I started working in academic library, like in my early 30s. So especially, first generation college students, which I am also a first generation college student, they may not know what in the world that is. So maybe don't have events that are so serious, so steeped in like wanting to do something super connected to bibliographic instruction or something. But you are going to have some awkward conversations, because you're going to have a lot of coworkers that are not comfortable with the chaos. They're not going to be comfortable with the noise. Maybe they're a little old school. Maybe they're just used to there not being noise, or they're scared it's going to bother other students. We have a lot of events in Decatur from 11 to 1 because we are a commuter campus. There's no on-campus housing. A lot of students have kids, families, jobs. So they drive on campus, they go to school from about probably 8 to 1, 8 to 2, and then they leave. So we are the most packed 11 to 1. So that's when we have events. So yeah, there are a lot of students there studying. We also have a really small library. There is no designated quiet area. So, it is going to get noisy, and then that can make some people very uncomfortable. So those are some of the common pitfalls that I've seen. Just not wanting to ask for money, putting too much effort with not enough return, people having a lot of anxiety about it, people not liking noises. But you can get past all of those things. It's totally fine. The best thing I think to do is just recognize that these are some of the things that make you uncomfortable, feel that, embrace it, and then you're able to kind of battle those demons. So here are some of the basics of putting on an event. If you have put on events, a lot of times, this probably will not be interesting to you because this is just very basic, but I think it's important to kind of go through this rundown. So at the very beginning, if you get an idea, you do need to think about the event's goals and the objectives, and especially the target audience. You don't want to put on events, just put on events. Start thinking about who's really going to come. You want an audience. Is this going to be evening students? Is this going to be daytime students? Is it for staff and faculty? If you do an open house, is that maybe more for faculty than it is for students at the end of the day? What are the game nights for? What are the goals of the game night? You want to think about your partnerships. So that's really important. When I first started working, I just started putting down a list of who can I go and talk to? And so I immediately sent an email to the student life organizer. She's in charge of student life at the Decatur campus. I met up with her in person. That's important. No phone calls, no emails. Go in person. It's very powerful to go in person. So I had an in-person meeting with her, and I came to her with some event ideas, with some collaboration ideas. And then I also asked her, what can I do to help you? Can you tell me more about what you've done, what you do? I did research on her. And it was a very fruitful beginning of our relationship because we ended up getting along really well. She didn't even realize we could have events. She didn't even realize we could have food. And immediately in that first meeting, she's like, let's do Pups and Pops. Let's get the therapy dogs. Let's book the King of Pops. And she's like, and I'll pay for the popsicle people to come and cater. And that about bowled me over because I've never had the budget to spend $500 on popsicles. And I was just like, holy cow. And from then on, we just had the best relationship ever. You want to think about your budget. Do you have $40? Do you have $100? Can you get more money? Remember, you want to be that squeaky wheel. The times and the dates. You know, is it best Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Monday? Is there even anyone on campus on Friday? When do you have the most people on campus? Is it 11 to 1? Do it 11 to 1. Do you have an event that's more passive? Like our painting events can kind of run itself. Like we'll do those literally all day. So you want to think about that. Don't do events like, okay, well, we're going to do event next week. No. Try and have a calendar for the whole semester. And then if you want, you can add more. You just kind of want a skeleton outline. Because that way you can start planning, you can start having your student assistants make the flyers way ahead of time. You can start getting the supplies that you need. You'll get the dates with the people you're booking, the best dates instead of like the secondary dates, especially with something like therapy dogs where they get tons of requests for the end of the semester for finals week. So yeah, you want to get that done for sure. And then another basic how-to is you have to do assessment after, okay? This is something I notice doesn't happen a lot. So you need to meet after the event. You have to talk about how well it went. Did it go well? Did it not go well? What should we do better next time? And then document that. You have to have your pictures. You have to have taken lots and lots of pictures, because that's a great way to share on, of course, social media, but then also like something like Student Life, they have to prove to the university how well it went. So if you share pictures with them, they can show the university how well it went. You want to do your numbers, how many people came, you want to document that. Send thank yous to anyone who helps, send thank yous to the Student Life. Student Life on Decatur campus was such a huge help that at the end of every semester, we actually ended up sending some sort of food item or like flowers just to show them our appreciation. Social media, of course, you want to send the pictures to social media as fast as you can with your hashtag or whatever branding you're doing. But you also want to see over the week, how well did that post do? What kind of photos that you're sending them do well and don't do well? Another thing I'll just kind of add in is the pictures. Make sure the pictures are not blurry, have good quality. You want to get pictures of students with their artwork, or students smiling, or pose photos. Student photos are the ones that really do the best. You don't want pictures of just a picture of the artwork that they did without them in it, or just a big picture of the room, because it's hard to see what's going on. You also want to document students' comments, because you want to know, what are they saying? And this is something you can use later if you ever have to document and prove to the university or to your library why you need more money or why they're doing so well, because the students are saying how great it is, how happy it makes them. I had one student who said, he literally said, I've lived in Europe and I've lived in Africa. And I think he was actually from the continent of Africa. And he said, you know, in America, students are just not as friendly. You come in, you do your work, and you go home. And there isn't that feeling of camaraderie. You know, there isn't a way to really get to know people, interact with people. And he said through our game nights, it was so fun because he was able to really interact with his classmates. It gave him that opportunity to do that. And so I think that's a great story of why this is so important. So we definitely, wanted to remember that. And of course, it's very heartwarming at the same time. So some tips to walk away with, just some little tips that I think are pretty important. Teamwork makes the dream work. Who is leading the team? So in my case, it was me, but you want to make sure you have, I think, one person who's in the lead, but of course they shouldn't be doing all the work. Everyone should have their assigned duties. And we have a small campus, a small library, and we only have a team of about, at this point, 1, 2, 3, I want to say 7 people. At the time, maybe 8. And so I really think everyone should have an assigned duty. This is something maybe some people would disagree with, of only someone interested in outreach should be doing it, shouldn't be other people's responsibility. But I really think it helps the event, because then everyone's on board, everyone knows what's going on. If students ask about it, they know firsthand what's happening, and everyone has their own skill set. And so it just really brings that sort of team camaraderie success. So when you do well, it's like everyone had a part of it. And then you want to make sure you have, what's your planning? How many meetings are you going to have? Everyone needs to be on the same page. And then who is communicating the information? Is the leader of the team communicating the information? Or is it better if the head boss is communicating it? So you kind of want to work that out as well. So with attendance, this is something that I think a lot of people have anxiety over. So for me, what I do to feel like I have a little bit of control is I'll be like, you know what, I'll be happy if 10 students attend this one event, or 5 students. And so the first time we did yoga, I was really nervous. I didn't know how well it would do, because we don't have a big library. I just had it right in the middle of the library. I'm like, are people going to want their butts in the air? For real, I didn't really know. So I said, okay, I'll be happy if I got 10 students to come. And then you get those 10 people by whatever means necessary. So I got those 10 people. I will say, I think 4 of them, one was a student assistant, and then I made him find 3 of his friends, and then they joined. So it was half him and his friends and half people that actually came. And then by the end, I think we had maybe 14 people or 15 people attend overall. And so, but one of the reasons why they attended is because halfway through they saw 10 people doing yoga. And so if I hadn't bugged the student assistant to go find his friends, maybe there would have only been 4 people. And then students feel kind of uncomfortable, I don't really know what's going on, but they see a bigger group of people and they're like, okay, I can come over. This also makes you feel like the event is going well, and you can also see if the event is working. If you only have 3 people, you don't really know if the event is working, but the more people you have, the more you can kind of see, okay, we need more space here. There isn't enough room for yoga mats. So I just think that that's really important to start thinking of okay, this is how many people want to come, and I'm going to get to where this many people come. And then we want a little bit of guaranteed buy-in. So if you have 4 student assistants who are working that day, then okay, no matter what, I'm going to have 4 student assistants in this event. Or I have this one class and they can come to this for extra credit, so I know I'm going to have 30 people. Or this club is going to come, or student life people are going to come. So you want to make sure, if you have guaranteed buy-in, then you know it won't be 0 people at your event. And that's kind of what you want to avoid, because then that feels really icky to only have 0 people at your event, right? You want to advertise like crazy. You are the event pusher. So every time a student comes over to the desk, or every time you help a student, you want to push it. You want to tell them about it. You have to be a little pushy, a little extroverted, even if it's outside your comfort zone. Don't just post on social media, even though that is important and you want to put those posts out. And you don't necessarily want to put them out a total semester beforehand. Advertisement rules, you want to have your calendar out, but probably only advertise maybe 2 weeks beforehand, 3 at the most, because you don't want people to get so used to seeing the information that they just are like, whatever, they don't even think about it. So you do want to have your hashtag. Make sure your hashtag is specific to the event so that when you click on that hashtag, it's the only hashtag, your photos are the only ones that show up. So for example, for a little while, we thought, oh, Decatur is greater, but the problem is that hashtag is really popular, so you don't just see our photos. So it needs to be like GSU Decatur is greater, and then we'll be the only pictures that come up under that hashtag. Do old school flyering. I actually think flyering on our campus works the best, even though we have the digital TV screens all around the campus. Just flyer the crap out of your campus. It gives your student assistants something to do. Make sure you don't have a lot of text, just bright colors, big font, just the information. Don't put a whole thing about it. You just want to have a nice, big, not a lot of info, but the date, the time, maybe a little tiny couple sentences about what it is, and a nice bright picture. So as you can see, Aquafina is moving around. You, unfortunately, if you are the leader, or if there's a couple of you and you're sort of the ones like really advocating for the outreach, you are the ones that have to bring the energy. It's on your shoulders. You are the ones, you need to start doing your grassroots marketing. Can you make some of your faculty come? Can you make relationships with them? If you see them eating lunch around campus, like come over and say hi. Like when you walk around campus putting up your flyers, that's a great way to run into people. Do you know staff that maybe would want to come? Like it's up to you to bring the energy and think of creative ways for people to come so that they maybe will bring their students. So real quick, are fun student outreach events important? I feel like I hear a lot from people like, well, they're fun, but they're not really important, or it's not my job to do it, someone else should do it. Like I'm a librarian, it's not my job to put on public library events, you know, it doesn't have real value. I absolutely disagree with this 100%. Especially when you are thinking about services for non-traditional students. So the Decatur campus, as I mentioned before, we're a commuter campus. We're super diverse. We have, I think, predominantly students of color. I think 79% of them are maybe getting some sort of student aid. We don't really have like a quad or like a big student center. So for them, the library is actually always packed. It is kind of the community space. It is in a lot of ways the heart of the campus. And so for these students, I think, especially with so many of them being non-traditional and first-generation college students, it's really important to make the library a comfortable place for them to be. I remember as a first-gen student, the library was not a comfortable place for me. It was very like, you know, big brick building, super quiet, you know, very kind of scary. It just seemed like kind of fancy, like I didn't really know what to do. But when you have a place that's welcoming, a place where they connect it with friendship, with meeting other students, this positive experience, I think that that's so worthwhile when you're serving these diverse underrepresented communities, especially because they have, then all these things are free, all this food, all this access to games and painting. Like where else are they going to get the opportunities to do these things? And then of course what happens is they'll end up checking out your books more because they're in the library more, or they'll, like I've created so many great relationships with students that I never would have if we didn't have events. Like so many of the students say, oh, I always know that you guys have great events. We have regulars that come to like all of our events. I've gotten to know some of them so well. They always tell me how they feel like the library is this really like fun, great place. And it's not just like the typical students that love the library. It's all kinds of students that really enjoy our events. So I want to share a little bit of our outreach success, just some pictures. Let's do this. So we had Pups and Pops, which I talked about. We had therapy dogs come, and then we also had the King of Pops people cater. I want to say the first time we did it, we had maybe 125 people come, maybe 150. We do cookies and canvas. We've done that several times. This is one where we end up doing it all day because in a lot of ways it sort of runs itself. That's just one of the tables. We've actually had to set up several tables. So at one time, maybe we'll have 50 people, but then overall, I think one that had the most was maybe 85 students throughout the day came and did a painting event. And that's when we're actually doing cookies and ornaments, paint your own ornament. As you can see here, some students, they love their artwork, all kinds of regulars and new people. We have guys, we have girls. On the right-hand side, we have some staff members who came. It was a great opportunity to get to know them. We've also had Blind Date with a Book, which is a public library thing. That was great because it increased our numbers like 100 billion%. We did mostly YA and graphic novels, but we also had other things that we checked out as well. As you can see here, some flowers. We got great comments from that. People saying, I never would have read this book. The guy on the right-hand corner in the bottom said, I never would have read this if I didn't do this blind date. The first time we did it, we only did it a week, and I think we had 40 people. Then we did it 2 weeks the next time, and we had about 80 or 90 people. We do monthly game nights. The last game night, I think we had an attendance of maybe 40 people. Overall, I think it's about 35 people that do it. We do game nights 3 to 5, and so it's a much smaller group of people that we're aiming toward because most students are not on campus past 2 or 3. So it's a really fun thing for the students that are on campus. Another reason we do in the evening is, as you can see with this Jenga, it is very, very, very loud. So when the Jenga falls in the right-hand corner, it is like... The games we actually didn't pay for, we borrowed from Student Life. We have snacks, drinks, a popcorn maker, all Student Life. Student Life gave us all that stuff as well. We also had yoga in the library, both an in-person one and a Zoom one once we had to go in the quarantine. That was a really fun event. As you can see, it's just right there, front and center, right in our library. All of the events I do, I put the food, the wings, the drinks right in the front. Just like if you go into a clothing store or Barnes & Noble, you have that display table front and center. You don't want to have stuff in the back or in corners. You just want it right in their face. Even if it seems like it's in your way, you want it right there. Here are sweet students that came. We had actually a couple of people. One is a staff member. One of the girls is a tutor. One of the guys is my student assistant, and some other people that came. So that was a really fun event. We did a silent DJ party, which we had, I think, about 85 people do that. We had wings, we had cookies. It was just like a super fun event. And what I also loved was there was a lot of dancing, as you can see here. That was just a super fun event, and students went crazy. They just thought it was like super great that we did a silent DJ party. So here are some things to think about, to walk away with just in general. Is failure is okay. It's okay to fail. It doesn't mean you're bad at your job. It doesn't reflect on you at all. Like, you just want to get out of that comfort zone. Like, you want to fail, learn what you did wrong, and try again. You want to be the librarian that your students need, not the librarian that you think you should be. You want to network, you want to get out there, you want to meet people, you want to meet, the organizations in your campus. If you need more tips, just use the internet, look it up, but don't just look at what other academic libraries are doing. Look at what, even like churches or community organizations or nonprofits or wedding planners. How do they put on events? What are their checklists? How do they know it's successful and isn't? And then this is the part that can be hard is you want to be that person that's chip, 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 the outreach advocate that's always saying how great outreach is, to show the value to the institution, especially if your institution doesn't value, fun outreach and only values outreach that they think is like educational. And then document your numbers, show how your numbers grew, show how many people are coming, take pictures. It's really important that you do that so that you're not just saying, oh, well, that event really went really well. Well, show us how. So thank you so much, y'all, for listening. I hope that something good came out of this. You learned a little something. If you want to talk to me more, if you have tips for me, if you have any questions, you can email me at jbrown318@gsu.edu, and we can chat if you want on the phone. So yeah, I'm so glad that I was able to share a little bit with you, and I'm so glad that you attended this, and I hope you have fun at the rest of the conference sessions.